A rough game in Seattle for both the Clippers and the Jazz. The defense is way ahead of the offense. Is that an area for concern? Nope. Next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. Today, we'll look at a rough game number 2 in Seattle. Two very, very fatigued teams, and look at some of the offensive struggles, some of the highlights by individuals. The starting lineup has been good or bad. I'll let you decide on that. We'll dig into some of the lineups as well, and Will Hardy reveals a new defensive philosophy. That's all coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz, which is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you very much to all of the everydayers out there, including the everydayer who yelled at me in the arena last night. I'm an everydayer. I was like, yeah, love it. Always say hi if you see me in the arena. I greatly appreciate that. It's super fun. And thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. First thing, being back in Seattle was great. I did not, for those who don't know, I was the radio voice for the Sonics for a year before I got fired. And I did not really know what I thought. And then I worked in Seattle I left Salt Lake in 98, worked in Seattle. Both my kids were born there. I met my wife there. Did not know what that was going to be. Did not expect it to be an emotional night. For whatever reason, I thought it was cool to go back, but didn't see it as kind of this big emotional night in any way, shape, or form. And then and to be truthful, it wasn't that. So I was accurate on that, on my own personal level. But it was just cool to see everyone. I saw all of my old talk show host friends, guys, Ian Furness, if you're a longtime Salt Lake sports radio, and then got to see that my wife was on the Seahawks broadcast team and got to see them, Steve Rabel and Warren Moon. And there was a big party that Mike Gasson, a longtime Seattle sports talk show host, got me invited to, and everyone was there. So Nate McMillan, Lenny Wilkins, Dale Ellis. So that was really cool to see the community come out like that. Obviously, we should get a team back there. It's a travesty. There's the two worst trades in the history of the NBA are Vancouver to Memphis and Seattle to Oklahoma City. So those are travesties that we would like to get rectified. All right, so that was a rough game. Just some of it was comical, right? Like back-to-back sequences with blown dunks. Not that surprising when you consider that the Jazz left Maui after the game, got in at 5 a.m. the day before. You've gone through 4 days of training, 3 or 4 days of hard training camp. You play a game, you get a day off, but it's a brutal travel day. And then you just don't play. Nobody plays very well the next day. Not surprising, not concerning, just the reality. And then the Clippers did it the other way. They stayed in Hawaii, then flew yesterday. So then they were dead too. So I'm not, if I had any single takeaway from the two games, if I was the Clippers, I'd be pretty excited. Like Kawhi looks great. PG doesn't, but he'll be fine. He's still huge. And then Robert Covington was fabulous. And they just seem really long, really active, and really good. So if there was a takeaway on these two games, that the Clippers starting five, which has two of the top 15, 20 players in the NBA, and then a bunch of other really, really good players, is superior to the Jazz starting five. Okay, we kind of knew that. Like that's the story of our season. It's like ESPN's doing their rank right now. I was really surprised to see Walker, Jordan Clarkson, and Colin Sexton all ranked in the top 100. I was stunned actually, which is great. Congratulations. But on most nights we're going to be short talent in our starting five against our opponent, right? And the Ringer top 100, we were the only team that only had one player in the top 100. So starting five each night, this is going to be a little bit of a slog. And the question is, can we stay close enough so that as we kind of go deeper and Will starts to work the game a little bit, can we make inroads? And then can we get an edge so that then in the final 4 or 5 minutes of the second quarter and we can hold on. And then the first, there are like the one thing starting lineups, when people say it doesn't really matter who starts, I don't agree with that because who starts matters to me because it's the only lineup that's on the floor for about 10 minutes at minimum a night, right? We're making our first substitution right now at the 8:14. Oh no, about the 8:14 mark. So it's about 4 minutes. And then sometimes that group will circle back, sometimes it won't. But even if that's it, then they get 9-10 minutes a night together. There's no other 5-man lineup that will get 9 or 10 minutes. And if it circles back to close the half, then it's suddenly going to get, 12, 13, 14 minutes together. Maybe even more if it closes the game, then it's up to 16. So it does matter who starts because it's the 5 that actually plays together the most. After that, I kind of agree with everyone. We subbed at the our first sub was actually at the 6:53 mark. It was 14-8, not 8:14. 6:53, right? So that group played 5+ minutes together. So you're guaranteed to be at 10. But we subbed at 6:53. Then that next lineup only plays 140 on the court. And then the next lineup played about 3 minutes, which is a lot on the floor. And we do that kind of again. We actually had 2-3, which is a lot. I don't know if we'll do that very often during the regular season when you're suddenly playing everyone more minutes. We have seen some nice stuff. We've seen Chris Dunn and Walker Kessler and Luka Samanic have a fabulous second half against second team guys for the Clippers in game 1. And we saw Taylor Horton-Tucker and Keontae George do it last night, which is great. And again, those are, the bigger concern I've always said about this is if you aren't good in those minutes, then it's a little disconcerting because those are Taylor Horton-Tucker needs to be, for us to be good, Taylor Horton-Tucker needs to be a lot better than Xavier Moon, right? And Taylor Horton-Tucker last night was certainly better than Xavier Moon. He was terrific. Just literally put his shoulder down, was so much better than him, dominated him, drove him into the lane, scored with regularity, and was pretty great. This is not going to earn me any brownie points, and I probably, our offensive rating, by the way, with Taylor on the floor in the second half was a 140. So really fabulous. I do want to share. I find, I get it. We only have 2 games of sample size, and it's no fun to not have an opinion. And we want you to have opinion. I literally ask you in the YouTube question of the day, who are you most impressed with in the preseason? And so everyone has their opinions. But what's funny to me is it does feel right now that there's like a contingency of Jazz fans who are vocal that are very, very pro Chris Dunn. And then there's and that same group seems to me to be fairly anti-Taylor Horton-Tucker. And they're in a little bit of a quandary because if they want to take the Chris Dunn moments from night 1 and claim they're valid, then they have to claim that Taylor Horton-Tucker's moments yesterday were valid too. I think both of these players have their strengths and weaknesses, and that really there's no like yes, no on either of them. I get it. That's not a very fun take. It's not very, it doesn't come out definitively, but it is true. The offense is really struggling though. So in the first quarter last night, we were 6 of 18, 2 of 7 from 3 with an 86 offensive rating. And in the second quarter, we were 6 of 23, 2 of 14 from 3, 5 turnovers with a 69 offensive rating. Actually, that's not, let me do that. First quarter, we were 8 of 19, 3 of 11 from 3, 7 turnovers, and an 81 offensive rating. And in the second quarter, 6 of 23, 2 of 14, 5 turnovers, and a 69 offensive rating. So an 81 and a 69 offensive rating for the 2 quarters. We are seriously scuffling offensively. I think that's just the night. Our second quarters have been disastrous so far in these 2 games. And so, and our offensive rating, we have not had a first half offensive rating over 100. Our first quarter offensive rating, game 1 was a 96. Night 2 was an 86. Then second quarter, night 1 was an 81. Second quarter, night 2 was a 69. So our defense has been pretty good. And And our offense is just not there yet, right? We have, I think, 15 first quarter turnovers with an offensive rating about 88. In the second quarters, we have an offensive rating about 77. So those are rough. I'm not, that's trying to figure it out. John being a part of it, figuring out what a guard line is, trying to play a certain style, moving the ball, not being totally ready. So it's not, the hope is that this doesn't last for a particularly long period of time, I guess, would be what I would tell you on that. I mean, we start the season like this, it would be rough. Is it a starting lineup problem? I'll have that answer for you. And then Will Hardy says, touch the ball. What does that mean? And it's going to be a reoccurring thing you're going to hear more and more. We'll have that as we're just getting started here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by the official sportsbook of Locked On, FanDuel. FanDuel is also the official sportsbook of the NFL. All sorts of great things for you. If you are a new user to FanDuel, we've got some really special deals for you right now. So let me make me being punch drunk on 3 hours of sleep and trying to come up with a catchy phrase that would get me fired from the marketing department is me suddenly saying bonus bets galore would certainly get me fired. Here it is. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So that's right, $200 in bonus bets, which is kind of galore. No, it's not. Win or lose. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel. There's no better time to get in the action now. The app's so easy to use, wide-ranging of bets. You can do NBA over-under win totals for the whole season. They've got opening night NBA out there. FanDuel/Locked On available. Kickoff and get involved in the NFL season as well. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to get your bonus bets. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Visit FanDuel.com, including money lines, props, all the fun in-game betting as well. It's all there for you at FanDuel.com/locked on, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Today's show is also brought to you by Jase Medical. That's JASE Medical. The world is certainly an uncertain place, whether it's pandemics, weather, political actions, whatever it might be. You want to make sure that your family is prepared and that you are empowered to take care of loved ones during the unexpected. And Jase handles everything from an online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivered and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes is to get a Jase case is to fill out a simple online form, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of our board-certified physicians. Get ongoing care from the Jase Medical physicians on any treatment-related questions. Doctor-created, doctor-recommended Jase case. Here's the deal. Here's the special deal for you. You get $20 off on life-saving antibiotics today with Jase Medical by using the code Locked On at checkout. That's JASEmedical.com. That's Jase, JASEmedical.com. It's a Utah company, in fact, and Jase Case wants you to be empowered to take care of yourselves and your loved ones during the unexpected. So the Jase Medical offers the Jase Case, providing 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you the peace of mind that you need to have that medication on hand. Jase, JASEmedical.com, promo code Locked On at checkout. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Tomorrow we'll start digging into a few more of our preview pieces. I have a little kind of interesting plus minus thing, and then points gained is done. Points gained came out strangely, so I've got to look at it. Points gained is like one of the best teams in the league, not good. Like really, really strange. Kind of the way the Lakers came out that first year when they were the number one betting odds, and I had them not making the playoffs. This team's not making the playoffs, but it's not good. I got to make sure there's not a mistake in my numbers somewhere. I did it on the airplane out to Hawaii, so I haven't had a chance to double check it yet. All right, the starting lineup, which has been Taylor Horton-Tucker, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, John Collins and Walker Kessler, which actually, the more I look at like how we're doing rotations, makes more and more sense, particularly if Jordan's coming off the bench, and Keontae and Jordan seem to be a nice combo together. And I'm not sure how you're getting Chris Dunn involved. But you've got to in some way, because he's played real well in the settling, forced to what happens. We'll get into that in a second on some of the rotations and results that happen. But the starting lineup on night one was actually 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, did have 3 turnovers, but had an offensive rating of 120. So the the starting lineup in night one worked. Night two went 3 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, had 2 turnovers, just 8 points, and an 80 offensive rating. So it was not as good. But here's what's wacky. And this is where we just don't have enough sample size, and you can really kind of tell whatever story you want. So if you have an agenda, you can find the numbers to tell it. And that is that on night one, the offense was the best when Colin Sexton was on the floor and the worst when Kelly Olynyk was on the floor. And in night two, the offense was the best when Kelly Olynyk was on the floor and the worst when Colin Sexton was on the floor. Come on, that's kind of weird. I'll say it again in case you didn't totally follow it. Maybe you were passively listening. The night one, the offense was best when Colin Sexton was on the floor and worst when Kelly Olynyk was on the floor. And in night two, it was best when Kelly Olynyk was on the floor and worst when Colin Sexton was on the floor. The worst. So who knows? Will Hardy was really interesting in about defense last night in the press conference. Will Hardy actually had a very good press conference yesterday. And so, oh shoot, this is not the right book. I will be able to tell you about it. I pulled the right book and then just didn't bring it in the room. So Will already talked about last year defensively, all the changes they made. And we've been talking about this a lot. The everydayers will recognize this conversation about like, who are we going to be defensively and what are we and how's it, what is it and how is it going to play out? And what's interesting to me is it's not entirely clear, right? So that's the first thing of like a year ago, we played this kind of aggressive out on the perimeter, deny all threes defense. And then the personnel changed and Walker started playing more. And we went to staying right at the rim and denying the rim. And we're pretty good at denying the rim, but we're really good at everything, but we forced 0 turnovers, like 10% turnover rate, which if I have done my research correctly, if we actually did that for a season, it would be the lowest rate like in NBA history. So that's a problem. It was like the defense was better and the transition was interesting. We went from 17th in defending the shot to 5th, and we went from 25th in the league in defense rebound to 13th, and we went from fouling from 21st to 13th. So those were all amazing. The problem was that our turnover rate was so low that we actually weren't very good defensively. We're still only 19th. So Will Hardy talked about how last year the coaches taught about feet and positioning and did a poor job of talking about teaching hands. And he said the Clippers and the Thunder are 2 of the best teams at doing that. And so this year, that one of their kind of big defensive things is to touch the ball. He wants his defenders to touch the ball. And that's us trying to increase our deflections, increase our turnovers. Because if we can increase our turnover, if we can actually be similar to those numbers, 5th, if we're 5th defensively against the shot and we're 13th defensive rebounding and 13th in free throw rate, and we become, anything close, will be a top 10 defense. Like that's, if we can become, there is no one in the league last year, if I remember correctly, and I'm checking it right now, that was in the top half of all four factors. Like, I don't think there was a defense last year. There certainly wasn't an offense. There was not a defense last year that was in the top of all 4 factors. The closest was Golden State. They were 10th against the shot, 17th in forcing turnovers, 15th in offensive rebounds, and 19th in free throw rate. So, 2 of them were not. The team that would be most similar to what I just talked about, and there was a really good defense, is Phoenix last year was the 5th best team against the shot, 10th best team at forcing turnovers, 22nd in offensive run, last in free throw rate. They fouled a lot, and yet they were still the 9th best defense overall in the season. Another one that would be similar to this is the Lakers. The Lakers last year were the 6th best team in the league in effective field goal percentage, 9th best team in offensive run, number 1 team at not fouling, and then they forced almost no turnovers. They were the 6th best defensive team in the league. Oh, excuse me, they were the 13th best defensive team in the league. So if we could just get our turnover rates to about 20th or somewhere in that range, while still being, if you were a top 10 team in effective field goal percentage defense, all but 3 of the top 10 teams in effective field goal percentage were teams that were in the top 10 defensively. The Knicks were and were not, but that's because they were 25th in the league in forcing turnovers. The Lakers were 13th. That's because they were 28th in the league in forcing turnovers. And Brooklyn was not. That's because they were 29th in rebounding. So unless you have like a really glaring scar, if you can defend the shot as well as we did last year, you're going to be a top 10 defensive team. This would be great for us. And frankly, this is watching us a little bit. This is what we have to be. But you've got to get your hands on the ball. We've got to be able to have a bigger impact than the 10% turnover rate we had last year after the trades and after Walker moved into the starting lineup. So one of the big things that Will Hardy's talked about is they're teaching hands much more. We saw it with the Clippers. Robert Covington had 4 or 5 deflections, got his hands on a ton of balls last night. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and our guys really had our time. And every time somebody spun, they took the ball away. So we'll see whether or not this is something, but this is an emphasis that Will Hardy has put out on the floor on this team this year, is to touch the ball much more defensively than they have. One lineup was particularly good last night when you look at the rotations, and we'll dig into that and look at what each of the lineups did last night and how our rotations were similar or different than in game number 1. As we continue on your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, we're just getting started. So we'll keep it rolling, looking at those rotations here on Locked On Jazz. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Have you picked up the Jazz mini plans? All-Star plan, weekend plan, Western Rival plan, game month plan, starting 5 plan, all at utahjazz.com. On that note, I want to take a second, and this is because I work with these people and they just do incredible work. And so I want to tip my hat to Travis Henderson, Caroline Klein, so many other people involved who probably deserve credit. The Jazz TV crew has literally built an entire sports media entity in the last few months. Jazz Plus has gone off for 2 nights. My understanding is fairly hitchless. Really an incredible accomplishment. The numbers of signups on Jazz Plus are fabulous. The amount of people that have signed up for $125 a season, which is less than $1.50 a game, and you get a free 2 tickets and a t-shirt and a hat. So it's virtually even cost, is through the roof. It's just awesome how many people have done this. It's a sign of the Jazz. The NBA is going to be wowed by this. This is becoming a raging success. So congratulations to the Jazz crew that's done it. And then I hope you've already signed up. If you haven't, please do. You get the game streamed to you, and you can watch the game and be curious what people's experience has been. But I think it's been seamless so far and been great. Also, special thanks. They got the audio button back up on the app for listening to the broadcast. So thank you very much for that. All right. Let's look at some rotation things that took place. So we started with Taylor Horton, Tucker, Colin Sexton, Lowry Markkanen, John Collins, and Walker Kessler. Again, the starting lineup was -6. And then our first substitutions were Kelly Olynyk for Walker. So John Collins becomes the center, and Jordan Clarkson comes in. That lineup was actually only out on the floor for about 2 minutes before we made the next substitution, which was John Collins going out. We were +1. So I was curious to see John Collins center minutes, how those are doing. And they played about 2 minutes there. We'll keep track of it, but they played about 2 minutes and they were +1 right there. John has been quiet. I think this is a massive adjustment for him so far. Then we had Keontae George come into the game, and then a similar Ochai Agbaji comes in for John Collins, and Lowry Markkanen slides to the 4. So we're now playing KO with Lowry Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, Keontae George, and Jordan Clarkson. I really like this. You've got Ochai creating some stuff. You've got Clarkson and Keontae that are drivers, and you have a 5-out lineup with Olynyk and Markkanen. It's our best spacing group you have out there. It did not do particularly well. It was -4 in that stretch when it was on the floor, but that's a lineup I think we should continue to see and keep an eye on. I do like it. It's 5 out. It's stretched. It allows Keontae to have room. It allows Jordan to have room. Those two seem to be okay together. So there's something there. Then we close with Keontae and Jordan Clarkson with Ochai still, and then Kelly Olynyk, and then Walker Kessler comes in. So we went back to Walker center, and we were +1 for the final minute 40 of that, with Lowry finally getting a rest. We opened the third quarter, and here's the lineup that had the most success. Open the second quarter. Here's the lineup that had the most success. Now, it is worth noting that Zubac got hurt, so they were at Diabate and Plumlee as their centers, but I think Plumlee was in at this point. Chris Dunn, Jordan Clarkson, Ochai Agbaji, Kelly Olynyk, and Walker Kessler. So no Lowry Markkanen on the floor in this lineup. And this is the same lineup that kind of closed the first quarter, and it played for 3 minutes, was +6. So it turned out to be a +7 yesterday of Chris Dunn, Jordan Clarkson, Ochai Agbaji, Kelly Olynyk, and Walker Kessler. Just like an interesting little thing to keep an eye on. Like Kelly, ball moving, Chris Dunn, ball moving, Jordan defensively, Walker defensively, Ochai defensively. So I think there's something that's maybe there. And then, so we got the game down to 2. It was 31-29, and we made another substitution. This is where we brought Simone and Colin Sexton in. And this is where we're playing 10 guys. I just don't think we're going to play 10 guys. So, with 9:21 left, we brought in Colin Sexton, Simone Fontecchio, Kelly Olynyk goes out. We are crazy small. All of a sudden, we were playing Chris Dunn, Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton is kind of the 3. Simone Fontecchio is the 4 with Walker. And shortly thereafter, we brought in Taylor Horton-Tucker, and then things kind of began to slip on us. We went from down 2 to down 7 pretty quickly in -8 in that grouping. And then we had Taylor Horton-Tucker, Colin Sexton, Simone Fontecchio, Lowry Markkanen, and John Collins on the floor. So we went back to having John Collins at center, which, again, I kind of wanted to keep an eye on and see how it worked. And it was with Simone, which is not a natural lineup, but it played even. So I'm looking right now. It might have played -2. It played -2 for a few minutes. So John Collins' center minutes were about 5 minutes last night, +1 or -1 overall. So not a lot to either side of it. But, we did see that. We did see a little John Collins center. We saw some Kelly Olynyk center in for Walker Kessler in the first quarter, or when he's playing with Lowry Markkanen. So we saw kind of 3 different center lineups. I really, frankly, think Kelly Olynyk plays the 4 because he's just not a good enough rebounder to be 5. So when Kelly Olynyk's playing with Lowry Markkanen, I kind of see Lowry as the center. So we saw Walker in the center to start the night. We went -6. Then we saw John Collins in the center, went +1 for a minute or 2. Then I feel like we went Lowry at center, and we went -4. Then we went +7 with Walker back at center. Then we were even, Walker staying at center. And then we had where we kind of fell apart. We went -8, which I think Walker was still at center with Chris Dunn, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Ochai, or Colin Sexton, Simone Fontecchio, and Walker. It's not a lineup I think we're going to see. So it's kind of an interesting one as you dig into lineups, suddenly falling behind by 10 to the Clippers in the first half when all the minutes were real and Kawhi Leonard was going. Like, I kind of feel we fell behind because we just played this one lineup. I just do not think we're going to play. Like, if I look at our first half numbers last night, and I think Simone ends up playing 5.5 minutes. He's even in that stretch. Keontae played 8 minutes. He was +5. So it's just, I don't suspect that we're going to see 10-guy rotation. It's super hard to do. Coaches generally try to stay away from it. And we were right in kind of in this game, playing it tight, somewhat in it. And then it kind of slides away from us, a little bit late in that second quarter. And I would just, my thought on that one is our first half, or actually Simone was 6 minutes and -6. Those are the numbers I gave were from the other night. Yeah. I just don't think those 6 minutes in which, I think we might've played 11. We played 11 guys last night. So that's not a realistic moment. And frankly, Simone being -6 in those 6 minutes, or just 6 minutes, I just don't think that lineup is something we're going to see in a regular season, which suddenly you take that out and last night's performance would feel a lot better, right? It's a pretty close game. It's 33-31, and we kind of go to this unique lineup. And then it's 38-31 where we bring Collins back in for Dunn and we bring Markkanen back in for Kessler. And now John's probably playing the 5. And we just stay with them for the rest of the half, really. I think they stretch it out by one more bucket or something like that. But it's basically we're staying with them for the rest of the half. We were down 8 and then finished down 10. So to me, that changes my perspective a little bit on the whole ball game. It was rough. The shooting wasn't very good. The offense wasn't very good. But like there was this rotation in the middle of the game that was +7. That's exactly the script by which we're going to have to win games this year. And then there's a middle stretch of the second quarter where we're -7, where it's just not a lineup I think we're ever going to see. So we'll see. All right. We'll got a bunch of stuff throughout the week coming for you. Saturday, we'll play Portland in first preseason home game. So make sure you get your tickets for that. Look forward to talking with you guys more throughout the week. We will do points gained by the end of the week. So, well, probably points gained next week, actually. Monday and Tuesday of next week, we play New Zealand Breakers, and then we'll do points gained in there. So thank you very much for tuning in to Locked On Jazz. Go make Locked On NBA your second listener of the day. Thank you to all the everydayers. Appreciate you. 5-star reviews are much appreciated on any of the platforms. Tell a friend or two so that you have smart friends to hang out with during the NBA season this year. Have a good one. This is Locked On Jazz, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.